Getting there. Okay, hey, welcome everybody to this episode of the BariAftercare podcast. I cannot tell you, this is a topic tonight that I know so little about, and I could not be more excited to learn because I'm a huge believer in this, even though I know little about the mechanics of it. So we have an absolute expert with us who is proficient in bariatric dietary nutrition, worked in bariatric centers, wrote the materials for the bariatric centers for a large company for many, many years, and is still working with bariatrics in a little different capacity. So I'm just going to let Katie introduce herself. I'm going to tell you the topic we're talking about is gut biome. And I'm so interested in this and cannot wait to learn. And who knows how many episodes we're going to have to talk about this, but we're going to start tonight. So let me introduce you to Katie Chapmon. Katie, tell us about you and welcome.
Thank you, thank you, thank you. I'm so excited to be here because I'm like, oh, we're gonna just geek out together. So, a little bit about me. Yes, I've been a dietitian for 15 years now. And the first 10 years of my career, I was with a huge organization, Kaiser Permanente, and worked with bariatric surgery patients in all capacities, pre-surgery, post-surgery, and then also kind of wrote like clinical guidelines and repletion, like if someone's vitamin and mineral levels went low, kind of to help solve that. So I did a ton of awesome and wonderful things there, and truly just love to see everyone go through this amazing journey. And then I wanted to kind of get back more to working with people individually. And so about 5 years ago, I left and I'm in private practice now. And I do work with people on their surgical journeys per se. But then I also started dipping my toe into gut health, hormone health, and just I really love that I get to kind of bring all these different aspects of care, that it's not as, because you have bariatric surgery as surgery on the digestive tract. So it's kind of like you take a house and you shake it, then you put it down and you're like,
Yeah.
Go.
Great analogy. That's a really great analogy.
Yeah.
So where did your interest in gut biome, and this is so important, I can't wait to talk about this. We may do a separate one on this, although I don't know if you can separate this, but I will learn from you. The hormones.
Oh my goodness. My goodness. Okay. I'm like, how do I put all this stuff together? Because we might need something separate for hormones. But so, part of why it piqued my interest is, one, I just found that with working with people, surgery is awesome. It happens, but then we still also have the rest of our lives too.
Right.
So stuff may change or come up or, change sometimes because of surgery in different ways, whether that's positively or not so positively. But the bottom line is we still have a whole person to take care of. So as I was working with people, I saw these other things kind of come up of like, okay, yeah, maybe that switched a bit with surgery, but wow, there's more to it.
Absolutely. In every aspect, right? Your body, your mind, the whole person is affected by this. And we kind of just cut it off. It's like, okay, you had surgery, bye-bye.
Yeah. And I recognize the same thing. And so I think that, and gut health and hormone health actually really go hand in hand, because part of how our kind of hormones and breakdown is part of that breakdown actually goes through your gut, through your digestive tract. So oftentimes I kept like coming into this going, well, I can't fully separate one without the other. So it's kind of like this nice little like, well, I'm going to there's certain aspects that are gut health. There's certain aspects that are hormone health, but we know that there's an interconnection. So I can't just it's not in my nature to not address both.
Yeah. Yeah. And like you said before you and I were talking before we
Yeah.
started, we're
Yeah.
both so passionate about what we
Hmm.
do and we just want people to
Yeah.
know what we know so they can improve their lives. So did you
Yeah.
have to do a whole bunch more education then when you started really focusing on this
Yeah.
specific area?
Yeah. So I mean, and I haven't gone down the route of like certification, and there's not always certification in just
Right.
gut health and hormone health, but I definitely had to educate myself further
Right.
on just what what are these dynamics, what
Yeah.
happens with all of this, and what could we do, whether that is, and I kind of look at like three pillars. Like I definitely look at nutrition, I also
Right.
look at lifestyle,
Yes.
and then I also take a look too, is there any supportive supplementation that's
Mhm.
needed,
Okay.
and so that we're matching everything up, whether that supplementation is like, oh, we come in for 2 months with it to move the needle a little bit quicker and maybe address how someone's feeling or symptoms that they're having, and then know that it's not just like, oh, try this and
Right. Guesswork.
go.
Okay. I already have all kinds of questions.
Go,
So
let's talk.
okay. How are you defining lifestyle? When you say
Yeah.
lifestyle,
Hmm.
what does that entail?
So that might be sleep and sleep hygiene and addressing, I like to call them bookends of our day, like what is our night routine and what is our morning routine, so we can really make sure that those are in place, because sleep, far reaching for gut health, hormone health, and even weight maintenance too. So
Absolutely.
so that's one proponent. Stress management. Another proponent. Am I speaking your language,
Also
Bonnie?
related to weight maintenance,
Maintenance,
right? And
and
emotional
exactly.
eating.
Yep.
Mhm.
All of that. And then I'm also taking a look too at positive movement. And I like to define it that way because we
I
have
love it.
certain hangups with some words, and I get it.
Mhm.
But we want some positive movement. And some of that might be specific for something of like, oh gosh, something a little bit more weight bearing, whether that's using a wall, my wall here, whether
Right.
that's using a wall, or whether that is something that is uh, more ground based, but more weight bearing, or
Yes.
something that gets your heart moving, and utilizing some of those different type of movements can affect gut, hormone, and then also weight. So we just want to look
I
full
had no
circle.
idea, that movement is affecting our gut biome. But you know
Yep,
what? Makes perfect sense. We're all connected. Go ahead.
we
So
are.
that's that piece.
Yep,
Okay. And then um, the third one, okay, we have the gut biome, we
yep.
have the lifestyle, and then you had the,
So I look at nutrition, lifestyle, and then supportive supplementation.
okay, let's talk about that. Well, that would
Sure.
be like a vitamin or
Could be. It could
a
be.
hormone.
So what could be is that could be a really nice, well-rounded prebiotic, which is a
Okay.
bit different than a probiotic.
Which I've only recently learned. Okay.
And then you also have symbiotics. So let
No, don't
me
know a thing.
explain the three. Let me explain all those. So
Okay.
just think, your gut microbiome, it's like a party in there. Okay.
And we're talking about the inside of your stomach when we say gut,
We're
or
talking about your whole digestive tract. So
okay.
this includes not only your stomach, but this includes those good bugs or the good bacteria that's going to break down and utilize your nutrients. And that's all throughout your digestive tract. So stomach, small intestines, large intestines or colon.
Okay.
And we also have some in our mouth too. And
Okay.
that helps move things down our esophagus. So you're right, the whole shebang there.
Okay. Good to
And
know.
I like to think like if we're looking at like biome or microbiome, we have the good stuff that is what's going to be utilized to not only help break our food down, break down our nutrients and like extract them into the body.
Okay.
We also have our not so great bacteria. I hate calling them bad because we see them sometimes and it's not like they never exist, but we kind of want them to be in their place.
Okay.
Okay. And so that's why when people talk about balance,
Hmm.
we
So,
want that nice and balanced.
and I'm going to probably drive you crazy,
It's okay.
but
Stop me.
I totally love this.
Yep.
So these things that we're not calling bad
Yeah, it's
bacteria,
okay.
we all have it, right? It's
We
just
all
there,
have it.
right? We
We
just don't
all
want it to be out
do.
of proportion.
Correct. Because
Got it.
if they're out of proportion, if it's like this, then what ends up happening is that just think every time like those bacteria, you eat food, and
Hmm.
those bacteria are like, okay, chomp, chomp, chomp. Let me take care of that food.
Okay.
Our good stuff is like chomp, chomp, chomp. Let's put something back into the system. We're going to re envision that food as a different nutrient. We do something with it that really helps our system.
Okay.
And our not so great, bad bacteria, whatever we want to call it, that we'll see when they eat that food, they're giving off a side product that is not so helpful to the system. So they might give off gas, which is then what people will say,
Okay.
oh, I feel bloated.
Okay.
Or they might give
Sure.
off, they might give off more inflammatory markers or stimulate inflammatory markers
Okay.
in our
What would
body.
be the difference between bloating and inflammatory?
So inflammatory might not look like I'm, like bloating. Like bloating, I always think like
Extended.
distended or, what people will go, gosh, I kind of feel like I have like a bowling ball kind of
Okay.
sitting there. That's what I think of bloated. And
Okay.
it's usually kind of more on the soft, like if you push, it's a little bit more on the softer side
Okay.
and kind of like a balloon.
Okay.
And
Makes sense.
then inflammation can look really differently for people. So for some people, inflammation, especially related to gut, like you'll see, more like um, I've even seen like joint pain with
Okay.
that. I've
Okay.
even seen like um, where there's like eczema or some of these like kind of more like, gosh, why
Inflammatory
is this
diseases.
inflammatory disease that's related to it? Um,
Okay.
so does that, I hope that helps
That
to
makes
kind of
perfect
break it
sense.
down.
And here's what I'm
Yeah.
thinking, you
Yeah.
know? So we go to the doctor and we say, my joints hurt. And they
Hmm.
treat the joint, but not the source of the problem
Yeah. Not always.
a lot of
Yeah.
times, right? And it may be
Yeah.
the joint itself, but
Could
it
be.
may be exacerbated or
Right.
originates elsewhere, which of course reminds me of bariatric surgery because a lot of times
Yeah.
the food is the symptom of the problem, but we
Yeah.
treat the weight
Right.
and leave the other out when it's
Right.
really we got to deal with the whole thing.
We got to look at all of it because it's, I always think your gut is such this, like, it's a major highway in our body,
Absolutely.
right? We use it all the time.
Yes, superhighway.
So it's telling our body like, hey, you know what, you're getting nutrients are going on here, or you know what, something's happening in here. It doesn't feel so good. Hold on, body, don't make any moves.
Okay. So my next question, and tell me if you want me just to be quiet and let you do
No,
your thing.
no, listen. I
Okay,
don't
so my
I don't have a thing actually.
okay,
This is so fun.
okay, perfect. So the two questions that are coming to my
Mhm.
mind, one feels like a no-brainer,
It's okay.
but who
Yeah.
knows? The other one um, feels like I need more explanation. So the first one
Yeah.
is the more processed the food,
Mhm.
the more it's going to disrupt our biome. Yes or
Mhm.
no?
Yes.
Okay. So,
Yes, because it's like your biome has to weed through. Is this processed? Where's my nutrient at?
okay. So we're
It's
looking
more
for the
work.
nutrients.
It's more work.
Okay. Good to
Think of
know.
it like think of it like that. Yeah, like
Okay.
yeah. Yeah.
So now this one's going to be more scientific because logic
Okay.
says to my head, which is not going to be the right answer,
It's
but
okay.
logic says if these less healthy bacteria are
Mhm.
what's causing the joint things or the bloating or the
Mhm.
inflammation, should we just kill them all off? And I know that's not the right answer. And where do they come
Um,
from in the first place?
yeah. So oftentimes so some of them just exist and just hang out.
Okay.
So, and then some of them are not like what we would think of as in so to define this a bit better too. It's not like they're a food poisoning, like where we'll be like, oh man, okay, oh gosh, I have actual food poisoning, like a
Right.
pathogen. That's a other different story. So a lot of times where they come from is some of them is just like they're just part of the system. They're kind of
Okay.
hanging out. And
Right.
then if they get support or if there's room, like if your good stuff is on the lower side, and that's
Okay.
just think maybe it overworked because
Okay.
of trying to figure out processing versus nutrients, it gets tired. So
Okay.
it might be on the lower side, and then this is existing over here, and now it's like, oh my gosh, look, there's a new house.
Opportunity.
I can go there.
Opportunity, right?
Opportunity. I
I'm
can
moving
go
in.
there. Right, right. So that's mostly how
That's
your system works
I love the
versus.
explanation.
Oh, great. I
Yeah.
like to make everything so visual because this can be so complicated, and it is. But if we make it visual and kind of go, okay, let's make sense of this, it's easier for each of us to go, oh, okay, cool, this is how I really support it.
So far, brilliant because I understand it and I am not a science person. So you're doing a great job. Okay. So how do we know that things are amiss in there,
Mm.
imbalanced? What are there
Sometimes,
symptoms?
yeah, oftentimes it's symptoms. Like you can do some gut microbiome testing too. And I have utilized that actually with some clients. You really need to know what you're doing with that though.
Would that be
I
like a
will say.
lab, you mean? Like I'm gonna
So oftentimes they're like an at home stool test that
okay.
is sent to a lab. And there's quite a few different companies out there that do it. And that will come back with varying information depending upon the company. So,
And wanting to sell you their their
yeah, sometimes,
probiotics.
yeah, sometimes I know and that's why I say I have used it with people where I'm going, I really need to see a clear picture so I
Right.
can address something. Like there's some things that aren't making sense.
So there's probably some more that are more reputable than others.
Yes. Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. But first and foremost, I always go by symptoms. Like
Okay.
one thing that I can like I kind of my little checklist is like how are bowel movements? Like
Okay.
what does that look like? Are we going daily? Does it lean direction of like constipation or diarrhea or does that look pretty straightforward? It's a
Okay.
way to take a look. I look at bloating. And so one of my little telltale signs is if you wake up feeling fine, but as the day goes on,
Mhm.
you're getting more bloated that at the end of the day, it's
Right.
distended, it's uncomfortable like that. That usually tells me like microbiome.
Okay.
Um, I look at like other symptoms like acid reflux. Is anything coming up your
Sure.
esophagus?
Sure.
Do we have any gas like flatulence or burping happening? And then is there any pain?
Okay. Question.
Yeah. I know.
So you know how like some vegetables
Mhm.
are said to cause gas. So how do we know
Hmm.
if that's a result of the vegetable
Hmm.
or the gut biome?
So I'm looking at is if you're eating, like if you're eating that vegetable, and I'll like example like Brussels sprouts,
Right,
great, but they're gas producing part of
right.
that family. So are you having gas after? Usually it's within like
Okay.
30 minutes to
Direct
an hour
correlation there. Yeah.
after, or
Okay.
is this just random? Is
Okay.
this just you're living your life and you're like, but
I'm all
oh,
gassy. Yeah.
yeah, and that
Yeah.
tells me, it just kind of gives me more of a pause to go, huh, okay, this isn't necessarily just food related.
Okay.
We
Perfect.
do need a
Great.
great food foundation. So
Right.
absolutely we want to explore that. But if I'm kind of doing my little like gut checklist,
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
those are the things that I kind of question about to
Perfect.
help guide me
Thank
with
you.
with
Okay.
someone.
Okay. Oh, now bariatric surgery,
Yeah.
gassy, bariatric surgery, acid reflux. Is this
Hmm.
gut hormone stuff or shaking the house and putting it back down stuff?
Yeah. So, what I kind of look at, one thing that I will encourage anyone if they are preparing for surgery, if they're having symptoms such as what I listed, that I love to explore it before surgery
Okay.
because surgery does shake up that house and put it down. and then you're kind of like, oh, what
What's
what
what?
happened? What's
Yeah.
what? So if there's something before surgery, I want to know that because that helps to again go, is this a longer thing or is this just related to
Right.
just after surgery?
Uh-huh.
And then you're kind of looking through and going, okay, what type of surgery did you have? Is that more prone to a reflex picture? Is there a certain time of day that it's happening that needs some support around that? Are you going too long without eating? Those are some very surgically related things that you want to explore.
Okay.
Not, in the back of my head, I'm always like, is this microbiome? Is it
Yeah.
surgery? And
Right.
so some of it is like you want to explore, what are we doing, or like what are we just doing on a day to day? Do we have
Right.
a really great, like, is it supportive for our surgery? Like, am
Yeah.
I having a handshake deal with my surgery?
Right. Yeah. Well, that makes a lot of sense. And even if you have
Yeah.
to do it retrospectively, did you have these symptoms prior
Yeah.
to surgery?
Yeah. Yeah. Just to kind of know how to go forth. And
Right.
then, and typically if I'm a good time out from surgery, then I may want to consider like, do I do something like think through like a prebiotic, a symbiotic, a probiotic? Like, do I think through some of those different things that might be
Okay.
helpful?
Okay. Oh, fascinating. All right.
Yeah, yeah, and that's why I kind of look and just to explain those three things briefly. Like, we know we have this whole party of our biome and our system, and a probiotic is basically adding people to that party.
Okay.
Okay,
Are we adding healthy people to the party?
right? We're adding healthy people, but it's two types of healthy people. There's two strains of bacteria mainly in a probiotic. So that's what a probiotic is.
Okay.
Uh,
Before we move
yeah,
on,
of course.
how come some of them say we have 40,000 of this and 20 billion things of
Mhm.
that? And oh my
Yeah.
God. And you just said there's two. And I'm like, wait a minute. The bottle says 40,000.
Yeah, there's two main families. So
Okay.
usually it's lactobacillus and bifidobacterium. Those are the two main families that are in a probiotic.
And how much of each do we want? Or does it depend on what
So
we're dealing with?
depends on what we're dealing with. Typically, if I'm just kind of like general, then I'm looking for about 5 to 10 billion CFU is the
Billion. I got
amount.
to write this down. Hold the phone.
Yeah,
I need billions of these little suckers.
usually billions is what we got to think. We got these tiny little bacteria.
How many? 5 to 10 billion
Hmm.
of
And
which CFU?
CFU stands for colony forming units, and that's
Okay.
how they measure them in. So
Okay.
what you'll see on the bottle is you want to see a multi-strain, meaning there's several different types of those lactobacillus, and there's several different types of those bifidobacterium. So you'll always see like the first kind of name is
Hmm.
one of those two.
Okay.
And then it's like, oh, here is the more specific.
Okay.
And
Okay.
this is where you get sciencey, where I'm like, oh,
Yeah.
okay, the species and the genus, and
Right.
just know like those are the two
Can you repeat
main
those two?
ones.
Lacto.
Lactobacillus, which is what we think about in like yogurt,
Okay. Good.
and then bifidobacterium.
Bifido.
Bifido,
Like a, okay. Bif,
yeah,
bifido.
Bifido,
Okay. Bifidobacteria.
bifidobacterium.
And how many
Mhm.
of those do we want?
So in total,
Okay.
you want that like general rule of thumb is that like 5 to 10 billion.
Okay. So do those two
Typically, if
things,
you're trying to address something.
lactobacillus and bifidobacterium,
Hmm.
those two together equal CFU?
So that's how you measure a bacteria, is how
Okay.
many colony forming units that you have.
Okay.
It's
Okay.
kind of like if we were to look on the back of our vitamin and we were
Okay.
like, oh, this is in milligrams, let's
Okay.
say.
I
It's
gotcha.
just the unit of measurement.
Perfect.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Good to know. So if you're
No,
looking
this
for just a general and you haven't had an individual consult on this sort of thing, this is
correct.
sort of the criteria.
Well, but general. Yeah. So that's why the bottle will say like, I have so like there's 4 strains and there's this. And I'm
Yeah.
like, yeah, I do want several strains, but you'll always see like the first name will be the
Okay.
similar or same for several of those strains.
Thank you.
Yes.
Okay.
Oh no, it gets confusing and overwhelming, right? I think
Sure.
I
Yeah.
know this stuff and I'm like,
Yes. So thank you for allowing me to get, kind of particular with these
yes.
questions.
Yes, because I know it's not just you. And as I told you
Exactly.
before we even hopped on, I was like, oh, I can talk for days about this. It's fine.
Hey,
Like we want to just have some great answers for ourselves. So
nice.
I'll use a probiotic. Like if I have symptoms, if someone goes, oh, I feel like I have some symptoms, let me try a probiotic to see if it works. Give it a month. If it
Okay.
doesn't help those symptoms, it's the wrong product. And then
Okay.
I might be looking for something else.
If it does work, then I stay on
Mhm.
this forever and ever and ever.
So if it does work, I'm usually like, you want about 6 months on and about 3 months off.
Okay. I love it.
Yeah. So because why you kind of want to do that? There's some studies that kind of have like rotation and things,
Okay.
and so what you're trying to do is think of the party scenario. It's the best way to think about this, right? You're adding to that party. You're adding the same people to that party.
Okay.
But then you're kind of like, pause. I want everyone to mingle because there's more than just those two types at the
Okay.
party.
Okay.
So you want to kind of let that environment also happen as well,
Okay.
which is why you want to give a break from a probiotic.
So if the probiotic, and you say then maybe you need another product, you're not saying a different brand of probiotic.
No, if it doesn't help, usually what I'm looking at is like, hey, if this doesn't help your symptoms,
Right.
there's definitely ones that are like probiotic for women or probiotic for gas relief. And I would choose something
Okay.
that's more related to that, but it's still those lactobacillus, it's still those bifidobacterium.
Okay.
If you try that for a month and that doesn't help, then what I might consider is either a prebiotic or a symbiotic.
Okay.
Okay. So let's explain a little differences
Okay.
between those.
Okay.
So a prebiotic, so remember your party.
Okay.
Probiotic adds people to that party. Good people, but it adds people to that party. A prebiotic are like appetizers for that party.
Okay.
They feed all the different bacteria
Okay.
in there, more than just what a probiotic provides. We have a lot of different varieties and types, like you would at a party.
So
So,
they are feeding the good and the not so good?
they're really mainly feeding the good.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So I always think of them like heavy apps. You want a
Okay.
good heavy app for that
Okay. Got it.
party. Yeah. So you will see, you can literally like Google, Amazon, whatever, a prebiotic. And typically what is in a prebiotic is there's usually several different types of pre-broken down fibers.
Okay.
So examples, because there's several, okay, but examples might be an acacia fiber,
Mhm.
might be an inulin fiber,
Okay.
and different than a fiber supplement that we would think of that we would
And a
add to our
fiber. Yeah.
water or something like that. That is not a broken down prebiotic fiber.
Got it.
So if someone also tells me like, I've tried a fiber and that didn't
Yeah.
work,
Yeah. No,
actually
no.
a prebiotic
Yeah.
actually might work out a lot
Okay.
better for
Okay.
someone.
Mhm.
So that's what I like. That's what I'll use. I tend to use that also for people who are pretty constipated. I tend to
Okay.
use a prebiotic fiber instead of even adding in a benefiber or something like or metamucil.
Right. Right.
And kind of part of the reasons of how I practice and why I practice that way is that I want to provide growth for that good bacteria to
Got it.
help you and help your body have a bowel movement.
Yes.
And oftentimes when people will try a fiber and they'll go, "Oh, it actually kind of made me feel worse."
Mm.
I often I often will see that we don't have a really great foundation of good bacteria, which
Okay.
is needed to break down. Just think of the eating thing. We
Sure.
need that to break down that benefiber or metamucil.
Okay.
So
Mm.
it's a different option.
Right. I get
Yeah,
it. Yeah, that makes sense.
yeah. So and then the last thing that I kind of mentioned. Oh, go, yeah.
So
That was great.
first we try the probiotic.
Yeah.
If we're not seeing benefits, then we go to a
Hmm.
prebiotic. Do we take
Yep.
them together?
I typically don't.
Okay.
Not at first, not if I'm just trying to figure things out, unless I
So we
have,
don't need all the things
yeah,
necessarily.
because you don't necessarily need all the things. And you also want to know which one kind of helps you and which one doesn't kind of help you.
All right. So when people take an antibiotic, is
Mm-hmm.
that when they're taking a pre or a pro or both or neither?
Usually, most people are told to take a probiotic after an antibiotic. I usually like to have people take a symbiotic.
Okay.
And it's exactly what you were talking about. A symbiotic is a pre and a pro together.
Ah,
So
duh.
right, you're
Symbiosis.
right. So you're adding people to the party and you're also feeding them at the same time.
All right.
That's when I would want something together.
Got it.
So kind of I will be like, I'll try a probiotic first. That's not if someone's kind of at their house going like, oh, okay, I'm kind of feeling like I got some symptoms here of what
Right.
she
Right.
she told me about. Let me try this probiotic. Let's see if that
Okay.
helps. Maybe that helps a little bit, but you're like, oh, it doesn't fully help me.
Mm-hmm.
Then I might go, oh, okay, try a prebiotic. Let's see
Okay.
if that is a more of a magic trick.
I like it.
And guess what? If both of them helped you a little bit, I bet you do even better with a symbiotic.
I love that. That is so good.
Yeah. So, and that's there's other choices around this, and
Mhm.
we've done. We're just learning so much more
I
about the
know.
gut microbiome
Mhm.
and there's more supportive products that
Right.
are helpful to it. And I just, right, it takes our opportunity here to kind of get some education around like, what
For
are all
sure.
these things?
For sure.
Yeah.
Okay, so these are the physical issues and sort of a line
Yep.
of defense,
Yep.
right?
Hmm. Yeah.
Um,
I was
you
like,
want to move into the emotional connection with the
yeah.
gut biome, or what do you
Yeah.
want? Where do you want to go
Because
next?
I know, right? Again, where
Yeah.
do we want to go next? I think, yeah, let's talk a little bit about like gut brain access. Because
Okay.
that's such a key feature of, right, the superhighway of our digestive
Yes.
tract. And again, like, even just I look at this as part of why I jumped into this was I was just seeing people after bariatric surgery
Yeah.
going, I feel good. Surgery was really helpful. I'm doing all these things. But I'm still living life. And here are some other things that are occurring.
Okay.
And part of that too is when we start looking at that, even that emotional piece of it.
Yes. Yes.
And why I kind of, want to even mention, hey, maybe we should pause and just think about what's happening digestively is that our gut microbiome helps to make neurotransmitters.
Okay. Here we go.
Aha. Aha. So neurotransmitters are, and some of them of what we may know is like serotonin, which is our happy hormone, and dopamine, which is that kind of like hit of like
Yes.
motivation and
Right.
excitement, you know?
Mm.
And so our gut microbiome, our good stuff, help to form those neurotransmitters
Nice.
and also help to go, hey, all right, go up to the brain, go, let's talk there.
Right.
So the
Right.
brain can then go, okay, yep, I'm feeling that. All
Mhm.
right, this affects my mood.
Okay. So emotional eaters.
Hmm. Yeah, yeah, and there's something, and I'm going. It's something ridiculous, like 92% or 94%. I'd have to check myself, but it's in the 90s
Mhm.
percent of your serotonin, your happy hormone, is made in your gut.
Are you serious?
It was shocking when I first learned that. I was like, holy
Wow.
moly. Yeah.
So if we're messed up down there,
Mhm.
and this gut biome is affected by our lifestyle,
Yep.
it's affected by our nutrition,
Absolutely.
and it's affected by supplements.
Yep.
If that's off, we got a connection with depression or
Hmm. Yep.
a little bit of
Yeah.
blueness,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah. Yeah. Because that gut brain axis that they call it goes both ways too.
Mm,
So oftentimes when people are more anxious, let's say, or and that's probably my easiest example, what they might notice is going, oh gosh, okay, my digestive tract is moving a lot. Maybe they have diarrhea, because
right,
that signal goes down to that
right.
way too, where they're like, oh, if I'm calm, things are okay there. I'm not getting pain. I'm not getting
It's so
movement or
fascinating.
acceleration. And I'll admit, like, we're still learning more about this. So there's some stuff where we're like, we know this is happening. We know this is
Right,
there.
right,
We don't know all the ins and outs of it yet. We're
right,
working on learning more.
right.
But gosh, we have a lot of data that connects that emotional, you know, capability, I guess I'll say, and gut and gut health. So,
That is such an exactly perfect example. If people struggle with the mind body connection,
mhm.
and you look at when I experience anxiety and I get diarrhea,
Yeah.
tell me there's not an
Yeah.
absolute connection
Yeah.
there.
Yeah. Yeah. I oftentimes, when people who have uh, gone through bariatric surgery, I oftentimes go, like, if we really think about it and what we're trying to do as partners in their health is that surgery happened on your stomach. Surgery happened down here and it didn't happen here.
Correct.
And even though they have this access of communication,
Mm,
they're like, you're new. What?
that is so true.
Like,
Nice to meet you.
yeah, like,
Or
oh
not.
gosh, we have to get to know each other. So part of even after, like, part of our work afterwards is also going, oh, okay, let's make sure that they relearn, re get to know each other, or maybe get to know each other
Yes.
in a new
Yes.
way,
Yes. 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 Yes.
you
So if
know?
serotonin is the happy hormone,
Yeah.
but dopamine gives us that boost, and dopamine is
Hmm.
very much associated with
Yeah.
addiction.
Yes. Hmm.
So, sugar and a lot of processed food must really affect the gut biome in terms
Does.
of the dopamine.
Yes, it does. It does. And so, how we can think about it, right? Because I'm like, such a complicated process. Let's break it
Yes,
down so it's
yes, please.
easier to understand. So, how we can think about it is just think back. There's like good bacteria, right? They're eating things. They're giving things back to the system.
Hmm.
Part of that giving back is saying, hey, dopamine,
Hmm.
this is what we're telling you.
Hmm.
Okay. But when we start having that like processed food or high sugar food, that isn't actually like giving growth to
Right.
those good bacteria. So it kind of stunts their growth. So
Okay.
that message is like a temporary message of maybe, oh my gosh, I just ate sugar. Whoa.
Yep.
But our other microbiome is not being supported. And
Right.
that's what's making the happy hormone for day to day.
Oh, nice. I like that.
So
Okay.
you'll get this like breakdown, but we
Hmm.
want your environment in there to be really lush so that for a
Right.
day to day, we get that usual kind of hit of I'm
Yes.
okay, I'm happy. Today's okay. We're happy.
That is
And
amazing.
then when something else goes in there, we'll get that like feedback system or that feedback loop of like, whoa. But
Yeah.
then we always have that like afterwards, we don't have a support. So it gives us a really big pendulum swing
Right.
instead of we want this like, sure, we could have sugar, right? We could have sugar every once in a while, but we don't want that pendulum swing.
Exactly. It's such a
Yeah,
roller coaster that way.
absolutely. Absolutely for, as a person and for your brain and then
Yeah.
also your microbiome.
And I think people really, really, and it's becoming more widely understood, but I think people think when, about nutrition
Yeah.
from food
Hmm.
as, cell body and all the health benefits
Yeah.
for physiology. But
Yeah.
dang, this emotional, the hormonal thing is
Yeah.
really, really big. And I think people need to really know that a lot of our steadiness or lack thereof
Yeah. Yeah.
can be related, in part at
Hmm.
least, to this
Absolutely.
gut biome.
Yeah, yeah. And again, like we're finding more about it, but there's already really compelling data of like this is
Sure.
how this works.
Mhm.
And I love to break down the science of it in a tangible way. So then, us at home can also go, okay, that makes sense. What can I do to support that?
Okay, let's go there.
Right? What can I do to support that? So if I look at like my pillars with this, I'm looking at like getting in food that is whole food and less processed food. So not meaning so black and white that it's like, oh, we're all over there.
Yes. Yes. We
So
have real life here.
we have real life, we live in real life, but we want to get an actual whole food so our body can go, cool, there's my nutrients, and I don't have to weed through
Yeah,
processing.
okay. All right.
Okay, so we like that. I look for color in food
Eat the rainbow.
because that is what tells me what polyphenol is in there. And polyphenols, which we can kind of think of them as a particular kind of antioxidant. That's more of a common word.
Right.
And so, what that different color tells me the antioxidant that's in there, and that antioxidants help to support my gut microbiome.
Okay. So
So color is great. I look for 3 to 5 distinct color
we're not
on a
talking
plate.
about the colors of the veggie straws here, friends. We
We're
are not
not.
talking that kind of color.
We're like rich, like
Like,
color.
yeah,
Yeah,
broccoli, kale,
yeah, yeah. Just
red peppers, green peppers, yellow
I'm
peppers.
like red beet. I'm
Mm,
looking for like a rich color. Fruit,
right.
veggies. That's what I'm looking
So
for.
if we're going color palette, we're talking winter colors, friends. Winter colors.
Yeah. Yes. Absolutely. Absolutely. And then I'm also looking at my fluids. So, and I will consider like some of my basics of actual like water and water going through your system. So making sure that I have fluids going in that can
Mhm.
help with that and help clean your system and move things along. Um, and then I also take a look like at as far as nutrition wise, or if I'm kind of sitting in that bucket wise too, I'm also looking at making sure that I kind of call it like eating with purpose.
Mm,
So because you want to have eating and then you want to have a break. And post surgery might not look like 3 meals a day for some
right,
people, and
right,
it might for others. Definitely, I've seen both
right,
sides. I don't
right,
have a this is a right or a wrong way.
right,
That's very body dependent.
right,
But we want to, hey, we're eating something that helps us nutritionally, helps our microbiome. And then we have a pause, and that might
right.
be 2 or 3 hours. And then our snack gives us nutrition. So
Okay.
I always think of it as like, I don't want just a blending in of throughout my day. There's a little bit here and there because you actually do want your gut to rest a little bit.
Okay.
So we do want there just eating with purpose. Hey, we're providing something. We're providing nutrients. We give a
Mhm.
break.
Okay. Got it.
Yeah.
Good. Good. So that's why we don't graze
Yeah.
when we take
Yeah.
breaks.
Yeah.
Hmm.
Taking those breaks so that we can allow actual those gut bugs
Do their
to
work.
do their work and then
Yeah.
for them to also take a rest. Imagine if we had to work 24
Yeah.
hours.
Exactly. Right. Oh, for sure. So yeah, overeating or eating too often
Mhm.
makes it less efficient.
Makes it less efficient.
Okay.
And if we just think about yourself, right? If we have too much on our plate, we almost can't do
I
anything
know that.
because
Right.
we're like, oh, whoa, this is too
So
much,
overwhelmed. Yeah.
right? Or if we don't have the enough or the tools we need,
Right. Okay.
then we're like, oh, I can only do so much. Yeah, okay. So we have to just think of it like how we would react in
That's a
that
really
case.
great way to think about it.
Yeah,
Yeah, I'm less efficient, I'm less focused, I'm less able to do a thorough job in any one of these areas
yeah,
because I'm too scattered.
yeah, yeah,
Nice.
yeah.
Nice.
So that's why I kind of think of it as like, okay, we're gonna eat, but we're gonna have purpose of that eating and
Okay.
an amount that feels comfortable for you where you're at post surgery.
Another question
You
that
know?
you
Yeah.
just said, if someone, so far we've got eat real food, eat
Yep.
colorful food, give
Yep.
your system a rest,
Yep.
and you just mentioned fullness. When people
Mhm.
overeat, and this isn't
Uh-huh.
related to surgery necessarily, but
Sure.
does
Yeah.
that overtax also the system?
It does. It does because in if a, we're doing visuals here because I like them. So
Please
just
do.
think it's almost like a conveyor belt.
Okay.
And I always think of the I Love Lucy episode, right? With like the chocolates coming
Right,
down there, where
right.
it's all of a sudden where it's like, okay, we can handle this. We can, and then all of a sudden it's like, oh my gosh, we can't handle this.
Uh-huh,
Your body is eventually it's going to go, okay, boop, I need to shut this machine down because there's
uh-huh.
too many things on the conveyor belt. I like have it's being thrown over my shoulder. I'm eating some. I'm do your body is like, oh man, I can't, there's too much.
Can't keep up.
So overeating doesn't provide our body its way to efficiency either.
Okay, very good.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So
yeah,
I think of surgery as such like a handshake deal with someone's body and themselves in multiple ways.
for sure.
And we want to help to make that handshake feel comfortable and strong and right. So
Right.
definitely like fullness will look different after surgery. I do know
Yes.
that. And part of just discovering what that looks like, and there might be bumps in the road on that, that's okay, but
Mhm.
really like establishing that understanding is really really
So
helpful.
people who are familiar with my work in particular, because
Yeah.
I have this thing I call the gotta do 'ems,
Yeah.
right? It's this
Yeah.
list of things as post-ops or anybody who just wants to live healthy, honestly,
Sure. Sure.
does. And it's exactly what you're saying. Eat
Yeah.
at regular intervals, eat a variety of foods, don't eat too many processed foods. Where does water fit into all of this?
Yeah, so I think, I think when I'm looking at like the water part of the picture, I do look at water as like a basic need. Like we always think like protein and our fiber
Mm,
from our vegetables. And I'm like, oh, water is part of that too. Because
mhm.
water is helping your cells and like helping your cells break things down. Like so
Does
we
does it
need
have a
that.
big effect either way on either kind of bacteria in the biome?
It does. It does. So it helps move things along. So
Okay,
that acts as like a cleaning system. Think of like a car wash,
okay,
like,
right,
like moving things along in
okay.
there.
Good,
So it
good.
helps that. And then we also need water and fiber to help form a bowel movement. So
Okay,
if we don't have that component, then we're not going to really be able to fully kind of like have good formation
right.
and good. And I always think of like packaging. It's not great packaging.
Right.
It's not going to move along. You tend to be a little bit more constipated.
So this probably, I'm just guessing here, based on what you've said, is got to be an individual kind of thing. So if whole fiber or benefiber or metamucil is too much for a person, that
Mhm.
may be where the
Yes.
prebiotic would come in handy.
Yes. Absolutely.
Like if your,
Absolutely.
if your package is like a brick.
Yep. Yep. I mean, right. It's no,
Yeah,
you're exactly right. And it's such a yeah, just of like, what could be helpful in this picture that combines all of these things? And so water really helps so that there's a moving of those nutrients. So if your microbiome, your bacteria is just like it's set in its home, you want things to move along each and every home. You don't want just one home. to get
That's
everything.
right. That's right. This is good. And I so love it when I track with this kind of stuff.
Yeah,
All right.
yeah,
So we're closing in on time here. So
yeah.
I have a few questions and then we will
Sure.
schedule another,
So
another.
many things, right?
There's just, it's so helpful and it's so fascinating. And I think a lot of this can provide answers, for
Uh-huh.
people that are like, something's not right and I don't know what it is. And this
Right,
may be an
right.
avenue for people to explore to really help, whether there's been
Exactly.
surgery involved or not, just kind of come up with some answers to some of this discomfort,
Yes.
not just in the midsection of their bodies, but sleep and all the things because it affects everything, the emotions. Um,
Mhm. Mhm.
this may be a very hot topic. This may
'Kay.
be something you're very familiar with or completely unfamiliar with.
Try me.
The gut biome and the GLP-1s.
Ah, yeah, yeah.
Right? Is this an area of something you're very schooled about?
Yeah, again, I think we're learning more about this connection in particular. We do know that it slows down movement,
Okay.
in our digestive tract.
Okay.
So if someone is having difficulty with, constipation and is having more difficulty, then I will oftentimes go, okay. And especially if they're before they're starting a GLP-1,
Mhm.
we want to make sure that we're providing a good foundation for movement in there because it does slow down that digestive tract in terms of movement. When we talk gut microbiome itself, we don't have the direct ins and outs of like, does it affect this good bacteria? Does it affect this not so good bacteria?
Mhm.
There is a component in study with insulin resistance in certain gut bacteria.
Mm.
I feel like I could talk a whole other thing on that, which is why you'll see certain bacterias marketed as a supplement, saying like, "Oh, the is
Okay.
helpful to GLP-1s or an addition to your GLP-1 or as effective as a GLP-1."
Okay.
So we do know some answers there, but in terms of just saying like, okay, do we know how GLP-1s affect someone's gut microbiome? I'm
Okay.
like, we don't have full answers there.
Okay. So this idea of medications, regardless of, not just the
Yeah.
GLP-1s and the gut biome, that would be a really interesting thing for us to continue with the discussion.
Yeah. Yeah.
And what other topics do you want,
Oh my gosh.
when we meet again about this? What other things do you want to help educate people about with this gut biome?
Gosh. So I think just I think definitely gut microbiome and its influence on insulin. I think
Okay.
that's a big thing of just for some of us to really pay attention of how that could be helpful.
Okay, good,
I th-
because that's so important. So many
mhm,
people have diabetes,
absolutely.
whether they have weight issues or not. So that's a good one. I'm
Hmm.
going to write these down.
Yeah. I think that's a topic. And then I think the other kind of part in terms of gut microbiome that we can absolutely talk through, which we didn't talk as much today, but what we see after bariatric surgery, because there
Okay.
are some things we see after bariatric surgery and
Okay.
what can be particular in that arena.
Okay.
Because I definitely wanted today to just go, oh, let's dive in and let's get a really good foundation of what we're even talking about.
And you did an amazing job with that. Absolutely amazing. I
So I'm
feel
glad.
1,000% more educated
Oh,
and
so
having,
good.
I really do, and have a rudimentary, at least,
Yeah.
understanding of what this is all about because I'm the kind of person who, I hear, "I need a prebiotic. I need a probiotic. Now I need
Mhm.
a symbiotic." So
Emma,
I would go buy all of them and take them
So,
all at once when that's
right,
unnecessary.
right, right.
So
Yeah,
this is so fascinating to me, and I
yeah.
can't wait for part 2 of this conversation. How can people get in touch with you, Katie?
Several different ways. I think that the easiest way is to go to my website, which is just katiechapmon.com. I have a little bit different spelling of my last name.
It's MON. That's important to note.
Yeah.
It's
So
not MAN, CHAPMON.
I know. MON.
Yes.
And so I think that's probably the easiest way
Okay.
to get in touch with me, because you can,
Perfect.
email me through there. You
All the stuff
can,
is there.
all the stuff is there. So that's probably the easiest way to go about that.
Okay.
But
I will
yeah,
definitely have that in the show notes.
thank
And I
you.
would really love for you guys to comment on the
Yeah.
podcast. Give us your questions so that when we meet
Ye-
with Katie next time, we can bring her some specific questions that you have.
Yes.
But I just cannot thank you enough. You recommended this topic, and I was like, oh, absolutely. Absolutely. This is so important for us to know and understand
Mhm.
better.
Yeah.
So we will pick up with this when we
Fantastic.
meet again, okay? All
Fantastic.
right,
I'm
everybody. You
looking
know,
forward to it.
check out Katie Chapman, Chapmon,
Yes.
online. And of course, check out the entire Barry Aftercare program and listen to all 190 episodes
My
of the
gosh.
podcast. All right.
Amazing.
I'll see you next time.
I'll see ya. Bye,
Thank you
guys.
so much.
Absolutely.
Bye
Bye.
bye.